morning, everybody. I have about 8:30 on my screen now, so I want to welcome everyone as we kick off the final MPO meeting for the year of 2023. It's kind of hard to believe. So I will begin by making sure everyone has their agenda present and by calling the Transportation Policy Committee meeting to order. I do believe we've kind of met our numbers. I know that I've been advised that Dr. Wilson will not be with us today. Safety procedures, as always, are vital, and hope everybody studied those overnight. The fourth item on our agenda is public comment period. You guys will have to help me to see if there are any visitors here who might be eager to have their say. All righty. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on past that. Our last meeting, October the 17th of this year, I'll ask for approval of the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson and Mr. Chris Mandrell. Any corrections or questions anyone have with regard to the meeting? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Cool, we have it. We are down to item number 6 to discuss and take appropriate action regarding resolution 2023-22, adopting an amendment to the Lubbock Walk and Bike Plan. This is something that I've been excited about. Mr. Martin, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Council, the Transportation Policy Committee. Good morning. We are excited to be able to come forward and be able to present to you an amendment to the bicycle pedestrian plan or the biking and walking feasibility or understanding where we stand. Thank you. She's fixed me, so now I sound a lot better. So we are here to be able to kind of discuss a couple of things that we've been looking over and studying and be able to kind of improve. Also trying to take a look at items that we need to add based off the new federal regulations that we have for pedestrians and walking and biking and all modes of transportation. With that, one of the things from our review and going to the ad hoc advisory committee as well as the transportation advisory committee is that when we were reviewing this item, it came to our attention that we are missing a map to be able to describe the type of facilities that we have currently in the Lubbock region and the type of user that would utilize that facility. And so, as you might be aware, we've hired a new GIS modeler. Her name is Ayla. She's sitting right here. She's come on full-time. She started with the MPO as a part-time planner and has been promoted to the full-time GIS position. And in that capacity, she's gone through and did a thorough review of the existing facilities and has created this map which depicts the attractions and the amenities, as well as on the backside shows the rules of the roads, and shows a close-up of the lake system. With this map, we have evaluated all those different facility types and been able to kind of assign it a facility type. So, you know, whether it's sidewalk, if it's on system, meaning in the roadway, if it's a brick system, if it's a multi-use path, if it's a trail, and the type of level that we think a user would be capable of utilizing that. And so it kind of gives you an opportunity to be able to have anybody pick up the map and be able to say, I want to be able to go to see Prairie Town Lake or the Prairie Town, or go up to TTU or I want to be able to go and see Civic Hall. And so with that, how do I get there without having to drive a car? If I want to ride a bicycle, which facilities are usable and which ones aren't for my ability? And so this map is an opportunity for them to be able to evaluate their ability and to be able to kind of take a look at the whole system and say, how can I get from point A to point B? This map will be available online as well as a printed format as mandated by the regulations. And we've taken this out to the public for questions and be able to make sure that we caught all the things that would be important. With that being said, in conjunction with this map, we are also proposing to do a Lubbock bicycle survey. This Lubbock bicycle survey is much like what our counterparts in other regions have done. It's to be able to verify the existing conditions here in the Lubbock region, as well as to be able to see what we could do better or what's missing. And then from the answers that we will get from this survey, we will go back to our pedestrian ad hoc committee and ask them for suggestions and be able to have a discussion with the general public about the existing bike plan and make any necessary amendments that may be deemed or advised. With that being said, we did a test pilot with this. We sent this out to the ad hoc committee. On our ad hoc committee, we have the president of the Bicycle Coalition here in Lubbock. He sent it out to his 120 member membership. They've come back with positive reviews. And so they think this is a very good survey. They like the questions we're asking, and they think it will get to the heart of any projects that will need to be identified as additions or deletions or improvements that may need to be made. With that being said, we took that, after we took it to them, we took it to the Transportation Advisory Committee, who reviewed it as well, and now we're presenting it to you. We would like to go out to the public, put this on the webpage, be able to do a survey and be able to see what public comments we are able to garner and to see what projects might be able to come out of there. So at this time, we're looking to be able to move forward with Resolution 2023-22, adopting an amendment to the Lubbock Walk and Bike Plan to add a bicycle rideability map, and to be able to also get your concurrence that we should be going out for a Lubbock bicycle survey. And at this time, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Martin, for that information. If I can ask something right quick. With all the information you've provided for us, and I remember, I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago when the walk and bike plan was kind of presented and discussed. So at this point, how do we as the citizens of Lubbock really benefit from what's taking place?
So in 2018, the Lubbock Walk and Bike Plan was adopted. We had, unfortunately, once we started getting our feet underneath us, we had this nice big plan. We had COVID come about, and the general public, had a shelter in place. But at the same time, those individuals also took up things like being outdoors. They got tired of being inside, and so they started walking more. They started biking more, and so we've seen a utilization that has kind of gone up. But the question really is this bike plan still valid? Are these the projects that they still want to see? And then is there just a refresh that needs to occur, or do we need to kind of take a deeper dive? And so that's what this survey is really trying to get into. By putting it out on the webpage and trying to get it out to the advocacy groups, we're hoping there to be able to just kind of get the pulse of the community and to be able to understand, do we still have a really valid plan? We really do think we do. We don't think that there's going to be much that needs to be changed with it, but we just need to go out there and be able to verify that. It is now almost 2024, so you're looking almost 6 years out. If you take the mulligan for the 2 years of COVID, you still have a plan that's about 4 years old. And so right about 4 to 5 years, you should always be evaluating your plans, making sure that they are still valid, that all the assumptions are still correct, and then just to be able to utilize that to be able to see what improvements have been made. Based off of that plan, the city of Lubbock has added in some additional sidewalks in missing places. There's some bike improvements that have been occurred from bike routes. But in general, the plan as a whole is still about 80 to 90% the same. And so we just want to be able to verify, are we still moving in the right direction? The city of Lubbock, the TTU, the Veterans Administration, City Bus, are recently all partnered together to submit an application to the state for a large improvement based off that walk and bike plan. Unfortunately, it fell a little short in the state rankings, but we do have a call for projects that is opened up currently underneath the tip. And so we invite all of our stakeholders, all our partners that sit on our policy and our technical advisory committee to submit projects based off of the walk bike plan, based off of any priorities that they have that could fit underneath those things. And so we are still looking for those type of projects, and we're still looking for ways to be able to fund those projects in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Massengill.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Oh, you don't have anything to say? All righty then, Mr. Atkinson.
With my cup, I apologize.
Mr. Atkinson, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Martin, do you mind flipping back to the second of the two maps? Yeah, that one, thank you. Both these maps are great, so Ayla, thanks for working on them. Could we check over on the sidebar on the far right, City of Lubbock? City of Lubbock was named after Tom S. Lubbock. I think the county was actually named after Thomas Lubbock.
And the city just followed along.
We just wanted to be like the county.
I get that, I understand.
Everybody wants to be the county. And then,
What's in there is absolutely true. It was named after the city.
the city was?
named- Sure.
Okay. Y'all went first, but
Well, the high school was named after Tom S. Lubbock, so
we could list them all.
everything in this area that's named after Lubbock was named after Tom S. Lubbock,
Okay.
technically.
And then the population that's listed, the 295,999.
We'll verify that just to make sure it's the most current.
Yeah, I hope it's correct and you can get me a citation. I'll start using it. I like that number.
Okay.
Well,
For us, that's about a 29,000 ad.
Mr. Massengill.
well, I'll just, to Mr. Atkinson's comment, it probably is more accurate because I don't, the census we've always thought was low, but that's not the census number we know.
We can get you a site where we pulled that from.
Righty. Any other questions or comments or thoughts of any projects that may come to mind? All righty. Thank you, Mr. Martin. And I think we have to, our task is to approve the resolution that is before us. Am I correct? So if no other questions or comments, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 2023-20, oh, sorry, I need a motion. I need a motion first.
I'll move to accept. Second.
Mr. Tovar and then Mr. Massengill. Thank you, Ms. Chris, for that. I'm ready to get this thing over with. All righty, those in favor of approving the resolution 2023-22 regarding amendment number 1 to the Lubbock Walk and Bike Master Plan, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. All righty, thank you so much. Thank you for that, that information, Mr. Lucero. Appreciate it. All righty, agenda 7, I think Mr. Jones is gonna be before us and talking about something that I think is really important and can be important because we want everybody to be fully represented as a part of this committee. Mr. Jones.
Good morning.
Morning.
On agenda item number 7, we're talking about a resolution to allow Wolforth to select their own member from the city council to sit on this body. And so the only thing I want to reiterate to you is that we sponsored 3 opportunities for public input, and we got no adverse comments in that public input. And so the resolution in your backup specifies that we will make the change in Chapter 3 of the bylaws, the operating procedures for the policy committee under subsection voting members, item number 6, we will delete what's in the bylaws now and replace it with one elected official appointed by the Wolfforth City Council. And I would ask your support for that resolution and that bylaws change.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I have a quick question. And if the resolution passes today, how soon could Woodford be looking at having someone that is chosen?
I suspect that they'd probably have it on their next council meeting, a discussion anyway. I don't.
Would you like me to answer that question?
Yeah.
Thank you, Crystal, City Manager Wolford. We actually talked about that.
Please, if you could come forward for us, thank you. Want to make sure we really hear you and see you. You won't be able to say you didn't say it.
I was kind of fighting a cold. I thought my voice carried really well. So we actually discussed that at our council meeting last night. We did not make our council did not make a selection last night, but it was the first discussion that we'd had about that. So I would anticipate that at our first January meeting, we'll probably come out of there with a name,
Thank you.
which should be January I think the 8th or 9th.
9th?
One of those two, yeah.
What, 8th or 9th? Whatever it is. Thank you. Thank you for providing us with that information. And thank you guys for jumping on top of that and being ready to get somebody in place.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything else, Mr. Jones?
No, ma'am.
All righty.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Judge Parrish.
I move that the MPO changes the bylaw to allow the Wolfforth City Council to select their appointment to the TPC.
Moved by Mr. Judge Parrish, second, I believe, by Mr. Warren. All righty, thank you, sirs. And at this time, I'll call for the vote. Those are in favor of the approval of this resolution, which removes the old bylaws and places that the Wolfforth City Council can appoint someone to the committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really glad that happened. Because, I mean, if you guys are going to be here, you need someone. And sometimes the mayor's just so doggone busy that appreciate everything he does, but I tell you what, he gets to going. So thank you. All righty, Mr. Lucero.
Item 8 is a discussion on opportunities that the MPO has and stakeholders are currently performing to be able to take a look at a deeper dive at current statistics, data, and opportunities for us to utilize those new technologies to be able to improve our ability to be able to do performance management or congestion management and to be able to make meaningful performance measure goals. So every year, and here in the future, anticipating probably January, we'll be bringing items to you concerning performance measures as mandated by the federal government for the region. Those performance measures have things to do with like crash data, safety, congestion management, transit. And so in order to be able to take a look at that and to be able to make meaningful goals, we were anticipating looking at new opportunities to utilize new forms of technology to take a look at the data. And so as you're aware, the world has become big data, big box. There's a lot of numbers out there. And we have the ability now to be able to track utilizing cell phone data, video camera data, tubes in the ground, people standing around, just you can get data from almost any place. The issue, though, is how do we process that data and how do we make it meaningful for everybody to be able to take a look at it and not just be overwhelmed. And so we've discussed with our partners and asked them to say, hey, how are you doing these things? How are you managing this data? And we have two individuals that will be presenting to you today. We'll first hear from Jeremy Deering from TxDOT. He will be presenting concerning a new dashboard which TxDOT has implemented based off of some with some help from TTU. So they've utilized Texas Tech University and their engineering program. They have a master student who has now developed a dashboard on their behalf utilizing the CRIS data. And so they'll be presenting to you how TxDOT is utilizing that data to be able to do their evaluation. Then we will be hearing from Will Cummings on behalf of the city of Lubbock and how they manage congestion as well as big data and how they're utilizing that to manage their performance of their system. And so at this time, I'll go ahead and give the time over to Jeremy Deering.
Thank you. Good to see you, Mr. Jeremy, and boy, you are snazzy today.
Thank you, Madam
That
Chair.
jacket.
Good morning, everybody with the Policy Committee. Martin, appreciate that introduction. One thing he did get wrong, or I need to correct him on, Texas Tech University did this themselves. The only thing I had a part in is getting them access to the CRIS system with the state. They took this and ran very hard with it. I'm really proud of the work Dr. Liu and his team have done. Really good tool they have developed for us, and we're starting to utilize this every day. So a couple of screenshots, but first a little background about the district. We are 17 counties, 15,800 plus square miles, lane miles a little over 12,000. 17 counties to work with. We have 18 sections. One of them is a subsection in the Yoakum County, a bridge crew, and then my signal, ITS, and radio shop. This is the overview of the dashboard itself when you first pull it up. So the green dots represent suspected minor injuries. The blue plus signs represent suspected serious injuries. And unfortunately, the little red stars are fatal crashes. The only three crash types we are looking at with this dashboard are KAB, are fatal, serious, and minor injuries. This is zoomed in. I didn't zoom in to the city of Lubbock, but this cluster does include the city of Lubbock. Reason we're not doing all the other crashes, there's just too many. No injury, and then the property damage only, way too many to keep track of. We're looking at and focusing on these incidents. Some of the stuff you can see out to the side, a lot of different stuff. This is a busy dashboard. It takes a little time and a little bit to get used to, but we have crash severity, person injury severity. The part I like is kind of down toward the bottom. You can see crashes by the year. So you see each one of those, we can track our trends and analyze, our fatalities, our serious injury, and our minors. How it's done, this is district-wide by those years. This data that they have in there is from 2013 until July of 2023. CRIS updates every 6 months. They're working to get that updated quarterly, but it's a large state, a lot of crash reports coming in, so it takes a little bit of time, but they are doing that. So we're going to get this even more timely and be able to utilize some of this more and more. We also have crash contributing factors over to the bottom right. So you see the very first one is speed related. If anybody's surprised about that, then I challenge you to go out on the South Loop at 5:15 and see if you're still that surprised. A lot of different things we can do with this dashboard. We can select up at the top, we can select a date range if you want to look at just a certain area, a certain time frame. We can look at a certain county. We can even tie into street names and pull up certain streets, whether it be our FM on-system roadways or US highways, or if we want to get down into, a city street here in Lubbock or in Brownfield, Levelland, any of our local municipalities in the district. And then we can look at peak hour too. I can pull up certain time frames, not just dates, but I can look at the 8 o'clock, 7 to 8 o'clock rush hour on South Loop 289 if I want to. It's interesting if you ever do look at it, and it's a little scary, I'll be quite honest. Another little bit, if you zoom in a little further, you start seeing what we call our heat map, which the brighter white you get means the more crashes in that area. You want dull or just the red kind of purplish dots. Those singular dots represent a crash. If you start seeing the white clusters, that means there's a lot of crashes in that area. Thus, the parts we start looking at a little bit stronger. I did at the bottom go into, instead of crash by year, I clicked the next tab and did crash by month. So we're starting to look at even on the months, which months are our high months for different crash severities. Here lately, whenever we have a good harvest time in this area, October, November, December tend to be a little higher out in our rural part of the district. I attribute that to large pieces of equipment moving very slowly that are very heavy. You try to run into the back of a module truck, you're probably not going to win that battle very often. So we're looking at that kind of trend. September has always been high. August, late August, first part of September, about the time school starts back in session. So new drivers that got a car for, worked and got their car during the summer months. So young, new, inexperienced drivers hit the roadways a lot during those summer months and first part of fall. Again, looking at other statistics that we have, you drill down a little bit further, we can get into the individual crashes. All of these crashes, you can touch on it and it starts pulling up data. This data comes straight from the crash record inventory system or CRIS system that PD officers, law enforcement officers, let me rephrase that, put in, minus any personal identification data. So no names, addresses, anything like that. I still have age, race, gender, all that, because we're tracking that. That's one of the things we are trying to use. We're trying to figure out who and where we need to go talk to these individuals. We've engineered ourselves into a hole. Our roadways are engineered pretty well, but we're trying to get that education part of the aspect out to the general public. So I need to know, do I need to talk to the schools? Is it a young person problem, or is it the 25 to 45-year-olds that I need to get in touch with? Okay, then how do I go about doing that? So looking at this even geographically, I'll use Gaines County for an example. Large German community out there, so now it's getting into that school system. They have their own school systems. We're trying to reach out and get in touch and get into that school system to reach those young drivers, or even getting out to some of their community events that those people go to get word and education out. So using this for a multitude of different things. Again, down at the bottom, I went to crashes by day. Another thing we're trying to look at, when are our peak times? Seems to be Friday and Saturday, especially if you go to the hour part and start pulling hours on that. Now you're talking usually early morning. We all know what happens. There's a lot of things going on early morning, late at night around the district. It's not just a City of Lubbock thing. It's not just a Lubbock County thing. It is statewide. I will tell you that, and nationwide. Some of the other things we can look at, we've got person type and person age up on the top right. And then the bottom right, we've even got first harmful event. So trying to figure out what's going on. Are they hitting other vehicles? Are they hitting a fixed object? Are they running off the road? What are they doing? And then some of the reports that we're able to pull off of this. This is for Dawson County. In fact, I've got a meeting tomorrow with a property owner, and this is some of the handouts that I'm giving him. So all of a sudden, TT, you can pull the crash for a certain area that I want, pull the crash records, and be able to present them in a way that's a little more eye-pleasing than that big dashboard. If you're not familiar with it, it can get overwhelming. I understand that. So trying to pull something that the average citizen can look at and try to actually gain some knowledge off of. So on this one, we're looking at driver age, crash severity, even down there toward the middle of the right column is top 5 contributing factors. So in this intersection, speed was the biggest thing, followed by distraction, and even failed to yield right away. You can also see on the bottom left some of our crash trends, so we can show the public what's going on in that area. After we did a construction project, everything kind of leveled off, actually went down a little bit. Other things went up once we turned the signal on. So we can be able to use this to show people what's actually going on. Real quick, a couple of the other things, like I said, the data is all coming from our crash record information system, minus that personal identification, the PID information. Using this as a graphical representation so we can actually see where these crashes are. We're using the lat long given by PD or by the law enforcement officers, so that's one thing we are getting out with our law enforcement agencies and making sure those new officers understand this form isn't just one of those things that gets filed and nobody's looking at. We're looking at it now. Lots of people are. So that information is key, that it's done right and it's done fully. We used to get reports when they were the old paper copy. They filled out maybe half of it. So some of that 2011, 2012, 2013 crash data has some holes in it. So we're still using it, but we have to take some of that with a grain of salt. The online system was fully endorsed and adopted in 2017. Everybody started using it in 2018. So the 2018 to current data is really good. But we're still trying to get those new officers to make sure they're doing it. Sometimes whenever they're doing lat and long, they're pulling that information. If their computer's sitting in their car and they're 50 feet from the crash, it's where that computer is on that lat long. So getting them to make sure they're doing, using their phone, getting that lat long and then plugging it back in. It's another step, but it's one of those things that's important to us. How we're using it in the district, our engineers and designers are using this to view those locations. They're looking at contributing factors, the time of day and year, and other data, just to look and see what we need to do on existing or future projects. So if they're looking at doing a roadway in Hockley County, we pull up that roadway. Instead of them having to have Chris access, they can go to the dashboard, they can see those crashes. They can see it right then. They know exactly which county roads they're having an issue at. If it's a curve, what's going on. So we don't have to pull a report, get them access to it. They can actually go to it and see it. It's a lot better. I'm a very visual person myself, so this comes right in and helps quite a bit. We're also able to implement countermeasures to reduce the severity and the number of crashes to that specific area, be it targeted or systemic. So if we know that we have the crashes in a curve area, we can see that, we can address that, make sure we're touching that when we do a project. We're not just going out there and widening the whole road. Our budget, just like everybody else's, is very tight now, so we're gonna hit those problem areas very specific and work it that way. Our maintenance sections can also go in there and review the crash areas and see what they can do to make improvements in-house. So do we just need to add a couple of signs real quick? If that helps, that's a low-cost, quick countermeasure that we can do immediate. So we can hit that short-term need and then work on the projects with the designers and all to hit that long-term and intermediate. We study the trends of what's going on, and as well as try to, I wish I had, Judge Parrish's crystal ball that he refers to. I wish I had mine's a little dull and not so great, but trying to use that to just see what's going on. And the reason we're doing that, we're using some of the stuff that we've got in like situations in other counties. We look at the crashes. We also look at the property usage, the ADT. We're looking at everything to see, okay, now this intersection is behaving similar to another one. We had crashes due to 3 or 4 factors at this location. We want to get ahead of the curve, not have those accidents come in, so we can pull some of those countermeasures up ahead of time and be a little proactive. And then analyzing the effectiveness of those countermeasures. So, is a signal really working? I can pull the crash records before the crash, before construction, during construction, and post-construction, and see what has happened. Be it the signal, some of our Super 2s that we've done in the rural areas, or even the cable barrier that we've done a lot of here in Lubbock County. So using that information that's a few of the ways we're doing it. We're, like Martin said, the data is getting more and more every day. We're still trying to figure out the best way to use it and new ways all the time. I'll stand for any questions y'all might have.
Madam Chair?
Judge Parrish.
Well, the thing about a crystal ball, it really works if you've got good historical data.
That's right.
And so I'm really appreciative of what you're doing here with the CRIS system and how you're doing that, because we can see, we drive around, we know where the problems areas are. We can just ask anybody, where are the problem areas? But when you have this data and you're able to visualize that and see that, it's going to help us make a lot better decisions as to where to put our limited resources. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing to do this. And we really like the historical data. That helps a lot in making future decisions. So thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you. I like it as well. Is this on the public side of your website?
No, sir, it is not. This is still, it's not even on TxDOT. This is going through Texas Tech A&M, Texas Tech University. That's what happens when you start looking at the boss. Rosie off. So we're still accessing it through them. It's a lot of data. We're going to continue this. They're going to actually keep updating it and enhancing it all the time. The version you're seeing is about the 7th iteration that we've gone through. We are going to get this where we're working with the MPO. We're going to get a layer developed for them just like I was talking about, where we can filter it by county, we could actually filter the MPO boundary and be able to see what's going on inside the MPO for the TAC, for policy committee. So y'all can help make some other decisions based on that also. We will get this out. I've got to figure out with Texas Tech, with Dr. Liu, how we're going to get access. We would like, our city partners, our county partners to be able to look at this and utilize it also. Because this is both on and off system crashes. So we've got everything in the 17 counties represented here.
I just wanted to say, looking at this, never in a million years, growing up, would I have thought that would have gotten to come to this situation here in Lubbock, Texas, man. Sometimes my mind is still stuck on the traffic circle. But, just realizing that this is where we are, we've been moving fast and causing some things to happen. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you for your information. Thank you for being here looking snazzy.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Warren.
I'd just like to point out the traffic circle's been gone for nearly 30 years. Thought I'd just throw that out.
I know I wasn't trying to date myself. I'm just saying, just reflecting sometimes. Mr. Martin.
Madam Chair, we're happy now to be able to have Will Cummings come up and present.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Will.
Hello, good morning. So I'm your friendly neighborhood traffic engineer for the city of Lubbock, and I'm here to speak a little bit about what we do, congestion management and things of that nature. So requests for service. So they ask all the time, how do we get a request for service? Well, mostly from the citizens of the region. We do it through 311, the MyLBK app, email, phone. All of those show up on a dashboard, or they're taken by our admin staff and put into that dashboard. And then we make sure that we respond to those in a timely fashion. So the most common requests we get are concerning speeding in neighborhoods and then damaged devices. So down stop signs, burned out bulbs, that sort of thing. Excuse me, and I'm fighting a little bit of cold, so you have to excuse me. Other typical requests concern intersection control and signal operations. So too long of a red light, too short of a green light, that sort of thing. We also get a lot of input from our internal staff. So we run a traffic management center. It's Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And that's with the partnership with TxDOT. And so we have guys looking at cameras all over the city during that time. And so we can see things like temporary traffic control, work zones, recurring congestion or incidents on city streets, or where city streets meet TxDOT streets, or where city streets meet now county roads. And also new roadside development. So when you have like an HEB open up, that's clearly going to change traffic patterns. We also get requests from our public works partners. So those are the guys that are actually doing work out on the street, pipeline maintenance, street maintenance, all of those guys, they give us feedback. And then from our partners in engineering. So they're building a lot of roads right now. There's a lot of roads in design, a lot of roads under construction, same thing in the county. And so every time a roadway is widened or significantly changed, then that affects traffic, and then we're on the scene there as well. And then also from police departments. So they let us know about burned out bulbs and flashing signals. And then other agencies like TxDOT, when they do traffic switches in their projects or they have new projects, they are also in contact with us so that we can make changes as needed. This photo right here is an example of a relamp that we did at 50th Indiana due to a water valve project. So traffic was significantly shifted. We reconfigured the signal for the road work, and then when after it was over, we put it back like it was before. So a big part of our job is balancing safety with efficiency. So as Jeremy pointed out, the #1 contributing cause of crashes in this entire city, region, area, nationwide is failure to control speed. So excess roadway capacity results in higher speeds without significant reductions in travel time. So we know that our delay comes from intersections. It comes from our signal operations, our roundabouts, our grade separation. That is where our delay comes from in the system. It's not typically mid-block. So having an extra wide road where you can go faster doesn't necessarily get you to your destination quicker. Humans are vulnerable. Crashes at higher speeds result in more injury and death. Again, Jeremy has pointed that out very succinctly. So right-sized roadways with proper access management efficiently move people and goods with high travel time reliability. And that's what we're trying to get to. We want to get people from point A to point B safely, but we also want them to know how long it's going to take before they take off. So something that we've been working on as well is active transportation. So if you can reduce the number of vehicle trips around places like Texas Tech or around our high schools, that can reduce overall congestion and overall delay for everyone. So things that we have worked on and that we are still actively working on are more pedestrian hybrid beacons for safer, more convenient crossings. So where you may not warrant a traffic signal for vehicle control, but you need to get across a busy roadway, we can put up a pedestrian hybrid beacon, and that way the pedestrians can cross safely. They can stop the vehicles when necessary, and then the rest of the time there's no control there. We've recently finished installing 2 more of those on MLK at places where we had established pedestrian crossings. And we've got a TxDOT project coming up that will start construction in the spring to build 5 more of these. Collector signal placement for neighborhood connectivity. So we get a lot of demand for new signals near schools and other traffic generators, but sometimes it makes more sense to put it just a block or 2 away, and that way you can connect a neighborhood the other 23 hours of the day. And then something that I'm proud of is that we have started capping signal cycle links where we have high ped bike activity. So around Texas Tech University, you'll notice University, the vehicle traffic is pretty congested, but it moves at a consistent speed. It's a consistent slow speed. That's safer for the pedestrians, and then they experience less delay, so that's fewer vehicles crossing back and forth between the Overton neighborhood and the Texas Tech area. And then we are also installing more marked bicycle lanes, so following the MPO plans, where the system has shown that we need to put in a bike lane as we do maintenance operations, we do milling and overlays and that sort of thing in our public works departments, we'll go back and mark those bicycle lanes. We recently completed some down on 66th all the way through 69th, so we have a continuous marked bicycle lane from Milwaukee all the way to Slide now. And then the Broadway bike lanes were a big one that we did a few years back, and those are some of the types of projects where you might have to reduce the traveled width, but it doesn't significantly impact travel time because that width either wasn't being used efficiently or we have another way to use it with increased parking or something like that. And then something else that I work on a daily basis is having proper signal phasing to protect road users and avoid crashes. So we do leading pedestrian intervals. So now if you're at a big intersection, you push the ped button. Before the vehicles are released on a green light, the walk comes up to get that pedestrian a head start. That way everybody can see they have the right of way, they own the intersection, and then we release traffic. Protected permissive left turns with flashing yellow arrows. That's a big project that we've worked on since 2014. We've got them installed at almost every intersection in the city, and we have seen reductions in left turn related crashes because of those flashing yellow arrows. And then that enables us to do protected only phasing, cycle by cycle, or time of day. So we can choose, do we want to show the flashing yellow arrow? Do we know if there's going to be gaps or not? Should we just show a red arrow at certain times of day or when the signal detects a lot of oncoming traffic? And then sometimes we even go to permanent protected only. A lot of times that's if there's a sight restriction, if there's dual lefts, or if we have a high crash rate that's not being treated with other methods. Something that we're proud of is that we have high quality signal coordination in the city of Lubbock. That reduces delays and storage needs. So if you don't store every single vehicle, you don't stop every single vehicle that goes through an intersection, you don't have to store it. You can let it go through on that green light. This also calms traffic by constraining speed. We typically use the posted speed limit as the basis for our signal coordination, and it can reduce red light running. If I know when a yellow light occurs at an upstream intersection, I know when that block of cars is going to get to the downstream, and so I make sure that they've got a green waiting for them, and that way we don't have, a big chunk of cars hitting a yellow light. So talking about signal timing, we as a department continually retime our signal timing and we monitor and tweak it as needed. It's typically like a plus or minus 5 seconds between the different phases and offset, but signals are completely retimed anytime we have a long-term work zone, large roadside development, or when a new signal is installed because that affects the ones around it. Retiming includes modeling the traffic flow. So we look at speeds, we look at the vehicle capacity ratio, which is just the percentage of green you get at an intersection. And then we determine breakpoints in coordination. So if we encounter like a freeway or a large roadway where there's a lot of turning traffic, it may not make sense to push traffic through that intersection. It makes sense to let it spread out, let them turn, and then we start back up coordination after that. We also determine our minimum and maximum greens, our clearance intervals, that's our yellow time for our vehicles, or our flashing don't walk for our pedestrians, and then all of our detector parameters. So we detect vehicles in many different ways. It's important to include that in your timing so that you know if a vehicle is coming up, if it's 100 feet from the intersection or 400 feet from the intersection, depending on speed, that sort of thing. And then we develop coordination plans and we do a time of day schedule. So the phasing, which is the order that you serve the vehicles, the sequence, how long the total cycle length is, the offset, which is the relationship between the intersections, the splits, which is the amount of green time each individual movement gets. And then also we program in holidays because we don't want to run like a peak plan on MLK holiday where there's less traffic, or during a school break, like in front of Lubbock High. And then we have special school plans at places like Lubbock High. So we disallow left turns to protect the pedestrians at Lubbock High. Well, we want to make sure we only do that when they're present. And then we get to repeat this process at every signal down every impacted corridor. So for example, when like HEB opened, 114th and Quaker got retimed several times as traffic kind of established. But then that also affected 114th and Slide, 114th and Indiana, 98th and Quaker, and you start moving your way out until you see that effect kind of level out. So I like to say signal timing is a process, not an event. So you don't just time your signal, walk away, and call it good. It's something that continually has to be worked at and continually has to be reiterated. So this is kind of an example of the process. You can start on any one of these steps and you just continually move through the process and bounce back and forth. So we have cameras all over the city that we use to observe traffic. We observe things like if we have standing queues, if there's vehicles that are not getting through on the first green, how many vehicles are arriving on green, and if they're passing through the intersection without significant delay. Left turn phases is a big thing because you want to have enough left turn time to clear everybody out, but you don't want to have so much that it delays the oncoming traffic unnecessarily. So we'll take those observations, and this is myself, this is the members of the Traffic Management Center. We have interns and we have junior engineers that work there. They take that info, we might modify timing directly based on something that we see, or we might model it in our modeling software and see how that's going to impact the signals around it before we make a change. And then once we make the change, we go back and we observe it again. And we do the same process over and over and over again through the whole city, basically continuously. So talking about intersection capacity, sometimes signal timing alone cannot mitigate all of our congestion problems. So this is showing you kind of a timeline of what has happened at 82nd and Milwaukee over the last 10 or so years. As development has occurred in that region of the city and it's gotten more densely packed with development roadside, that's resulted in more trips and more vehicles. And so the intersection started out as a 6-lane section, and then I think it was 7 lanes at the intersection, right turn, single left turn, three through lanes on all approaches. At some point, that wasn't adequate to meet demand, so we went in and retrofitted some dual lefts. In order to retrofit those dual lefts, we can typically take away a foot or two from each other lane, and that'll make enough space across the whole intersection to squeeze in another left turn lane. We first did this only on the eastbound and southbound approaches because those were the only two that needed it. And the other approaches we were allowed to leave with a single left, and that way we could have a reduction in delay for those approaches. We didn't have to show them a red arrow. They could still see a flashing yellow arrow, and also they could filter through traffic with good visibility. But at some point, all the approaches started to get more congested, so we added in dual lefts on all 4 approaches, and that's how it is today. And then we've even recently made another movement where we've started pulling back that left turn lane just a little bit so that the opposing left turners have a little more room to navigate that tight intersection. Or I'm sorry, that tight turn. And so we end up usually with like a 10-foot turn lane and an 11-foot through lane. That still complies with all the minimum requirements, and we actually find that it constrains speed approaching the intersection, slows people down, and can reduce crash rates. But when this is done, we have to retime the signal and all the others affected. So then you end up going back through this process all the way down Milwaukee, all the way down 82nd. So all of this is made possible by our intelligent transportation system and our network that we have out in the field. So we run computerized traffic controllers. They actually run a version of Linux with a software app on top that actually controls the signals. All of our cabinet monitoring units are networked. So if we have a failure in the field, we know about it within 1 second. Typically, all of the calls that we get from the citizens, we're like, we've got someone on the way, someone's already dispatched. If PD calls and says, hey, you've got a flashing signal, we say, yep, we got it, someone's already on the way. And this is a 24/7 thing. So if a signal goes into flash in the middle of the night, our system sends a text message to our call person. So they know about it and they can get on it right away. We have network video detection systems, so we can actually bring back our detection systems to our traffic management center. We can watch traffic in real time from the viewpoint of our detectors, see if they're working, see how the traffic is acting. And then we also have our pan-tilt zoom cameras so that we can watch things from different viewpoints and we can turn and look at different approaches at the same time. All of this comes into a centralized signal management system that houses all of our signal databases. It automatically does uploads and compares. So if a signal maintenance person in the middle of the night has to change something to get the signal to run, the next day it sends me this report automatically and I can go look at it and make sure that it's the appropriate change for a permanent or a temporary solution. All this is made possible by fiber optics. So we have an in-house fiber optic team that works for the city of Lubbock. They're city employees, they work for me, and they are out every day repairing cables, installing new cables. This gives us a high-speed, wide bandwidth, long-distance communication between all of our signals, but also we have started tying in other city facilities, other public works infrastructure. So the new elevated storage tanks you see going up, we've run fiber optics to those. Your lift stations, your pump stations, and then now your libraries, your new police substations, fire stations, all of that is getting onto the city's IT network through traffic fiber optic networks. And then we use broadband radios where it's not feasible to run a fiber optic cable because of the distance or because there's not a pole line or there's not a conduit to get to it. And these offer us limited speed, limited bandwidth, but they require line of sight. So if you've seen the diamonds kind of on the signal poles in different areas, it just looks like a white diamond or a white square. That's a broadband radio that's uplinking the data back to our traffic management center. We do all this with in-house construction and maintenance. So we're super proud that we can run warrants on an intersection and we can develop plans and then we can build an intersection all with city crews. The latest intersection that we built was at 12th and Milwaukee. The only thing that was contracted out there was the underground boring and the actual pier drilling. Everything else was done with city crews, including the design. So it makes us a little more efficient, but also a little more nimble. So if we see a problem in the community, we can run out and we can take care of it without having to go out and acquire other labor. So, and then I'll open up to questions. That's kind of our general process for congestion management in the city of Lubbock.
Any questions? Comments?
I'll just say, impressive.
I think the more impressive thing is that how this system knows that my car is coming up there and puts up a red light instantly. I stop at every light in Milwaukee. Thank you very much, Mr. Clements. I
It's the
appreciate it.
giant bow tie.
Okay, I think that's what. Very impressive. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Will. Appreciate you. Appreciate what you do.
Thank
You and
you.
your team. Yeah.
Thank you. I promise I won't be much longer. You've been very patient. We just wanted to be able to bring to you an opportunity to view how our stakeholders are utilizing that big data. And then let you know that the MPO is also taking a look at creating a dashboard and working with our partners, with the city, with TxDOT, to be able to do a public-facing opportunity so that way when we do a call for projects, our stakeholders are able to take a look at that data and give us their best project based off of that information. We're also taking a look at how to better utilize the CRIS data, which is a crash records information system that is out there that is mandated for the DOTs to be able to keep track of. And then we are excited to be able to do this and hopefully bring it back to the committee to be able to verify and view and utilize in the future when we're taking a look at things like performance measures and goal setting and project selection. And so eventually here in the near future, you and your staffs would have the opportunity to be able to do a self-tour of this data and to be able to take a look at it and say, does this make sense to me? And to be able to use that in your decision-making. And so we look forward to bringing that to you here in the near future.
Thank you again, Mr. Moore. Man, I appreciate these guys, so it lets folks know that folks aren't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They're putting projects and programming and things like that together so that the citizens need to know that that information is available. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And we have come to the point of our reports. I believe, agenda item 9, Mr. David Jones. Thank you.
Mr. Warren's most favorite part of the agenda. Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 24 are the first 2 pages from our announcement for our call for projects for the 25-28 TIP. As the call specifies, we have an estimate of $70.3 million. That's concurrence between the MPO, the district, and TxDOT Finance to program through 2023. The timeline that went out with the call notes that the deadline for the proposed projects back to the MPO is February the 19th. The district will perform our decision lens analysis on those projects on March the 28th, and we will begin our public involvement on April the 1st. We'll bring a recommendation back to this board on May the 21st, and the commission is tentatively set to approve the new TIP at their August commission meeting, which is normally the time that they do that. The other takeaway here about the new TIP is that you need to understand that once the new TIP is approved, the old TIP, which is the one we're under right now, will totally be defunded and shelved. It will not exist, which means that you as sponsors and your staffs will need to be sure that for any project you have currently in the TIP, you need to bring it forward just as if it was a new project, because we need to put it back in the system again so that it can continue on. If we don't, they don't roll over automatically. And so everybody needs to have that understanding that we need to put everything that we have in the TIP now back into the new TIP, just as if it was a new project. And then, of course, add any new projects that come up. Now, as regards the 23-26 TIP that we're talking about, recently FHWA was reviewing that TIP for the funding process. In fact, a couple of weeks ago now, and noticed that our long-range plan, our MTP, had expired. And even though you passed a resolution back in October recognizing that situation and brought forward our old 2040 long-range plan to be able to check that box, they didn't accept that resolution. FHWA didn't accept that resolution and put an exception on the Upland project, the city of Lubbock's Upland project. What the exception was related to was not the original funding, not the original TIP, but the new 10CR money that we put on there as a result of the March call for quarterly revisions. The exception won't allow that project, that funding part of that project to continue on to let.
Mr. Jones, excuse me, Madam Chair. The 10CR, that's for carbon reduction, is that right?
Yes, and other things as well.
Okay.
And the intent, when we put that money on there, the intent was to use that money to satisfy a lot of the ADA requirements, sidewalks, curb and gutter. I think there was even some lighting in the call.
So TxDOT is still saying that Upland still qualifies, right? Or we still? Okay, federal stopped it? Yeah.
Grab your mic, Mr. Atkinson.
I was just wanting to see who we need to talk to if it's. an issue.
Yeah, and Mr. Jones can correct me, but it's not TxDOT. TxDOT's been very supportive. Because our MTP is expired and was not accepted, I think is the right term, we're locked out of any of the projects that we added after the magic date, the most pressing one being Upland 66 to 82nd.
The original tip, the project in the original tip can go forward. It's just the 10CR money that has been temporarily stopped. Now, and I'll get to some more information on that here in a minute. The law says that we must have, as we're talking about tips and projects, the law says that we must have a valid and a validated traffic demand model as a component part of that long-range plan. So we didn't have one back at that time when we first created that 2326 tip. But we kept on working, the MPO did, on all the parts of the plan, like the project call, the congestion management plan, the public involvement plan, all the performance measures, and the like. So we had those components ready. Our predetermined submittal date for our new plan was August 2022. So in June of 2021, TxDOT, and it wasn't just for the Lubbock MPO, it was for all the MPOs across the state, TxDOT reached into their pot of consultants that they keep on file and basically doled out MPOs to several consultants. They gave us, or we were selected to work with WRA as prime and CDM Smith as sub. And so we launched an effort, now this was in June of 21, to prepare a travel demand model to support our long range plan. And that work lasted 24 months. And in May of 23, this board accepted the model. The validated base year was 2017, and the forecast year was 2050. We tested the model, it performed. TxDOT certified the model that it met all their criteria, and we were trained, and then you brought it to you, and you approved it in May of 23. Now, moving forward, 2 weeks ago, when all this happened, and the FHWA said that our plan had expired, the staff quickly assembled all of those components that we had done and submitted it back to them so that we had a plan that met the minimum requirements of the law. That's what they didn't accept. We are still hung up on some the use of words and sentence construction and things like that. But anyway, the point being here is that yesterday afternoon, Kylan called me and told me that she had just gotten off the phone with Federal Highways, and they have authorized us to do an administrative amendment using MPO protocol to the STIP, and they will allow the 10CR funding to progress just like it was originally planned. So the funding part of the Upland project in the 23-26 TIP is back in place. It can move forward, and we will get that done. We will get that done this afternoon. Our MPO protocol requires me to develop some criteria. I'll send it to Mr. Warren. Mr. Warren will review it and make that call, and we'll be back in business. So that's the Reader's Digest story of where we are on the awkwardness of the Upland funding. Questions?
Any questions or comments, please?
I think that's great news. Really good news. I had a chance early yesterday to speak to Federal Highway, and it was not quite so certain, so thanks for y'all's work to do that. City will gladly take that special exception for the Dash 105 project and take those dollars. I guess, David, and maybe you're going to get to it, I guess our next step, we still need to get the MTP approved.
And we will.
Okay. What do you think we're going to, how do you suggest we go about that? Are we going to work on it? We're going to get a consultant?
We can work on it at the staff level, which is what we were doing. The reason that we missed our submittal date is we didn't have a valid model. And then our office went through the COVID situation just like everybody else did, so we didn't get all of our component parts assembled correctly as we should have. But they're ready. TxDOT has even suggested that we hire a consultant and help get a consultant to help us assemble the rest of our plan and get it moving like everything else.
What could the board do or act upon to help with that? I know we've not posted for action today, but we've got significant carryover dollars available to us to help to get a consultant to get this.
We're waiting to hear from TxDOT. TxDOT and FHWA are visiting about whether or not we could hire a consultant on an emergency basis and not have to go out with an RFQ. And if they agree to let us do that, once again, they'll just reach in their pot of consultants and pull us a consultant and say, get after it.
Y'all have pre-approved consultants, basically?
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? And we've got funding to, and I guess this would be directed to either Mr. Jones or Mr. Warren. We've got funding for that consultant. Is there something else that has to be done or that gets handled through TxDOT as well?
Go ahead.
I think Kylan is coming
I
up.
will ask somebody that knows what she's doing to respond to that.
My assumption, we haven't been told, but my assumption is TPP, the division at TxDOT, they're the ones offering this emergency solution.
Okay.
And TxDOT, just like the traffic demand model, we have consultants, contracts already done. So it'd just be a work authorization.
Okay.
So to me, that would be the quickest and easiest way is to use TxDOT's contracts to do a work authorization for our MPO and then spend the MPO's money to pay for the contract.
Okay.
That would be the quickest way, but we're still waiting on our TxDOT FHWA liaison, Philip Tyndall, to get back to us with the exact plan.
Okay.
But that, to me, that's the only way to really do it quickly. I think we need a consultant, especially for our 4 new counties that we're trying to bring on board. If the governor approves that new planning area, then I do think we need a consultant because we need all that, those demographics. We need all that data put into our plan for those counties that we don't have. But in my view, to get an MTP approved quickly, we need to just move forward with our normal Lubbock County, what we've already done, have us do it, each staff person, update our projects, do all the updates ourselves, and get them to approve it initially, and then do an amendment later to add those 4 counties. So I feel a dual path is better for us because we need an approved MTP. And so I think that's kind of what David and I have talked about. So hopefully they are still working on updating. We did get comments from FHWA this week. Yes, this week. They finally sent us chapter 1. And they're working on all of those comments right now. And I know they sent out to to the city of Lubbock and other stakeholders to update their project cost, which is another portion of this MTP. So I think we need to do both.
Okay.
So.
Thank you very much. Anything else? So you still have something, Mr. Atkinson?
Nope.
All righty. All righty. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Okay.
Next item.
Moving on, I'll be quick. On page 26 is an article about Austin City Council authorizing their staff to begin working on a financial plan and construction models to build 8 caps over I-35 from Cesar Chavez north through downtown to 51st Street that would accommodate soil and other backfill, trees and other landscape material, people and buildings. If you notice the picture on your cover of your agenda, that's an artist's rendition of what those caps will look like. I think that picture is actually a stitch, and I'll get to the stitch here in a minute. University of Texas has apparently shown interest in helping to fund the cap that'll be adjacent to their campus. The plan also includes the state providing 30 feet wide east-west stitches or crossings, which is the picture you have on your agenda on page 26. The city has tentatively agreed to pay for 4 of the 6 stitches without any planned amenities, which include bike lanes, shelters, pedestrian walkways, landscaping, and the like. The early design and engineering is estimated at $15 million, which will be TxDOT's portion. The estimated cost of the caps and the stitches is $543 million. FTA is considering a grant application from Austin for $100 million for the cap between Cesar Chavez and 4th Street. Austin finance staff is considering a 40-year payout on a TIFIA loan that they're making application for. And over $300 million is still resting on philanthropy, private partnerships, and a proposed tax increment financing district in Austin, all in the name of environmental justice, i.e. Title VI, transportation equity, and economic development. So it'll be interesting to watch to see how that plays out. On page 29 is an article touting the soon-to-be-released edition 11 of the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Mr. Ward, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to point out the juxtaposition between this cap and stitch program in Austin versus what we saw earlier, our Lubbock bicycle and pedestrian plan. There's no $500 million going into that, but they face different challenges in Austin than we face here in Lubbock, and I think we should all be grateful for that.
Thank you.
Of course, Madam Chair,
Mr. Judge Barry.
they're trying to copy it's Warren Park, named after you, I think.
Had nothing to do with it.
Okay. They're in Dallas. It's a really nice place. I mean, if you ever go down to that arts area by the Performing Arts Center and the museum, it's really nice, but it's a lot of money. It's a $500 million park. It's not bad.
Get us out of this, Mr. Jones.
Back to the Uniform Traffic Control, Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. There's a bill, it's been introduced. Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania introduced a bill that would, if approved, will guarantee 10% of all federal funding for safety programs would go to communities under 250,000 population, again, for safety improvements, and would close the current loophole that allows state DOTs to keep federal funding, keep federal safety money if they set roadway fatality targets higher than the number of deaths they record. His bill would also direct immediate changes to the manual to include additional countermeasures and programming for pedestrian safety and vulnerable road user safety, which there is now an FHWA program for vulnerable road users. Then on page 33 is an article about how consultants in Austin today are trying to visualize the user experience as riders access Austin's light rail system. The Austin Transit Partnership has selected 14 volunteers to wear specially designed tech glasses that they have, and some specially designed watches, you know, like the computer watches that everybody's wearing these days, that have GPS devices embedded in them to track locations, how many steps somebody would take to access the light rail. They track emotional feelings, safety issues, wayfinding issues, heart rate, skin temperatures, and the like. And so as this information is gathered and analyzed, then the consultants attempt to fix all those issues that these people are having that try to access their light rail. It's actually kind of interesting the way that works. But then on page 35 is an announcement that USDOT has opened a new Office of Multimodal Freight Infrastructure and Policy to oversee maintenance and improvement of our national freight network and supply chains. And oh boy for that. Then on page 36 is a report by the Texas Division of FHWA to all Texans of how the IIJA, or bill, has improved your life in the last 2 years. And I put that in there for your reading pleasure. There are some interesting and notable summary facts on page 50, 54, and 56 that I think will interest you. Then on page 59 is the cover only of a report that came attached to your agenda email that was issued 2 weeks ago by USDOT and FHWA, describing what now state DOTs and MPOs are going to have to start doing to measure and assess greenhouse gas emissions. And you'll remember, we've heard me say time and time again, the day will come that we're all going to have to start doing that, and here it is, in black and white, there for you to read and attest to. Even though we are attainment, we are now going to have to chase tailpipe emissions. We're going to have to set targets to reduce emissions and evaluate success toward achieving those targets. The current conversation regarding possible guidance is to say that we're going to be chasing tailpipe emissions as a part of total miles traveled, a volumetric measure without penalty to start, but wait, we'll have some penalty sooner or later, but required by law nonetheless. Obviously, more details will follow because it's just fresh, hot off the press, but I thought I'd give you a chance to look at it. Then on page 60 is our financial report through the end of the fiscal year, September. We have received 213% of our projected revenue, and we've finished up with a 94% expense rate, and our savings that rolls over to this year, the new year, is $861,746. And then lastly, you had another attachment to your email agenda regarding the most recent edition of FHWA and FTA's Joint Transportation Briefing Book, again for your reading pleasure. It's really a nice book. If you're interested in what we do and how we do it, that'll be a good resource for you, a good desk resource. So, Your Honor, that's my report. Unless you have any questions, I'm finished.
I don't have any. I just want to thank you for including some reading for us to do over as we celebrate the holidays. So, anyone else have any questions, any well wishes or anything like that? If there are none, I'd just like to take the time to say I pray that everyone has a safe holiday season and that they take care of themselves as well as their families over this time. And we'll see you next year. We are adjourned.
And as always, we appreciate your presence. I know you're busy, but we enjoy you being here.